Hi, welcome to another episode of The Lord's Delight. And as a continuing theme, we are talking about relationships that we see in today's world, but comparing them or looking at them from the biblical lens or comparing it to an existing relationship in the Bible or looking at verses that speak to this relationship. And in this part 2, the relationship that I want to talk about is friendship. And this is something, there are so many verses in the Bible that speak to friendship. And I'll give you a few. I'm pretty sure you can find a lot more. Proverbs 18:24 that says, "One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." Then comes Proverbs 17:17. "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity." And even in the New Testament, in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verses 12 to 13, it talks about the biggest or the greatest love is to lay down one's life for one's friends. And we also know the effect of prayer on friends. When Job's friends just put him down and made him feel bad, God actually made Job pray for his friends so that he would actually heal them. And if you look at Job 16:20 to 21, "My intercessor is my friend as my eyes pour out tears to God. On behalf of a man, he pleads with God as one pleads for a friend." And this refers to Christ as well. And only when Job prayed in chapter 42 for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and giving him twice as much as before. And if you actually see the sweetness of a friend, the counsel from a friend, and these are the highlights that the Bible talks about such relationship. It also talks about in 1 Thessalonians 5:11 about one can encourage the other and build the other up. The Bible also talks about what is not good for friendship. If you look at Proverbs 16:28, it says, "A perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends." And also, it talks about how grumbling and strife and what are those things that can cause cracks in a good friendship. In Proverbs 17:9, again, you can see, "One who forgives affront fosters friendship, but who one dwells on disputes will alienate a friend." And even in Ecclesiastes 4:10, we see about when two people are there and one stumbles, the other helps the one up. And there is even one that talks about my favorite verse that like iron sharpens iron. A friend, should be able to add to the other person and not take away. So that is something that is Bible stresses so much about friendship, and it has verses, especially in the book of Proverbs. If you read, there are so many verses, and even in Galatians 6:2, if you see, it talks about carrying each other's burden. And I want to point you towards this one relationship in the Bible that stands out from everything with respect to this relationship that I'm talking about, which is friendship. Read when you have time 1 Samuel from chapters 18 to 20 or even 21. It talks about the friendship between David and Jonathan. And in chapter 18 start, it says, "As soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David." Friendship is such an intimate relationship that it can even go to the point of where your souls get knit together. Can you think of, is that how you treat? I'm not saying every friendship is like that, but how is your friendship? Are you in that relationship for selfish reasons? Most of the character traits that the Bible lists for a friend is a selfless thing, to look out for the interest of the other person and to genuinely love them and hold them up and pray for them. So today's world, we have so many Facebook friends and we easily call people friends. When you look at and take a pen and a paper and list down the kind of friends that you would actually call, like have this kind of relationship, how many shows up on that pen and paper thing? It doesn't mean that you are friends online. Like, what kind of relationship you have? Can you list at least 3 people whom we have such an intimate relationship with as friends? I want to stress on that. And if you go on to read in 1 Samuel chapter 18, it says, "Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul." And then he gives him the robe and the armor, the sword, and the bow on his belt. I'm like, this relationship, can you see? Jonathan was not thinking about what is best for him, because what is best for him is for David to disappear, for David to be killed by Saul, who was looking to secure Jonathan's place on the throne. But Jonathan did not want that. He just wanted what was best for David and believed what God had for David. If you see in today's world, these two people would have been rivals, because Jonathan was the son of the king, so he is to be king next. But David is the anointed one. But they two did not behave as rivals to each other. They wanted the best for the other. And even after the death of Jonathan, David held up this covenant by taking care of the lineage of Jonathan. And if you look at chapter 20, David flees from Saul, and Jonathan is actually warning. And David wants to protect Jonathan, saying, your father knows well that I have found favor in your eyes, and he thinks, do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. So David understands the intentions of Saul, but he does not hold it against Jonathan. He still values that friendship, and Jonathan is the same way. They were being truthful to each other and not let any other relationship intrude there in a negative way. Jonathan still obeyed his father as father. He went to war under the command of Saul, but that does not mean he harmed David. And if you see in chapter 20, towards the end of the chapter, after verse 32, Jonathan actually goes to fight on behalf of David to his father and saying, what has he done that you want to kill him? And Jonathan understands that Saul is determined to put David to death, and he grieved for David because his dad had disgraced him. What a beautiful relationship. And Jonathan goes out the next morning and then tells David what actually happens. And if you see, it says they kissed one another and wept with one another, David weeping the most. They were mourning because they weren't sure when they would be seeing each other next. But then they are both sworn to each other to go in peace, and then the Lord shall be between me and you, and between my offspring and your offspring forever. And they departed in peace. Can you imagine such a relationship? To have a friend who is so intimate, who puts your interests first and prays for you. I'm telling you, such relationships exist, and they are a gift from God. And those are the kinds of friends that we need to cherish. And that is the kind of friendship that we need to pursue as Christians. Do not go for the definition of the friendship that the world has. Go beyond. And if you don't have them, it's okay. You ask God, and He will give you that gift of friendship. And I can speak to it from personal experience. I hope you find such friendship in this lifetime, and I get to cherish it. Okay guys, I'll speak to you next week. Bye.